Mr. Hilali, you know, you have come armed with some evidence, because I would suspect that probably you have come armed, determined not to address the core issue, which is Rana's confession, which has absolutely nailed your ISI and your government tonight. If it is to be investigated, you want to know, and hereby I'll let your friend Parthasarathi respond to you. I'll let your friend Parthasarathi respond to you.
My goodness. No, I'm sorry, just before Mr. Parthasarathi says, just before he tells me anything, just before Mr. Parthasarathi speaks, let me just say, this I suppose was like the confession and the corroboration you received from Ansari and Saba, which your own courts threw out, which your own courts rejected. Now Rana's confession, the American courts have rejected, but you hold on tenaciously to your belief that it is all Pakistan.
To the shock and horror of the Pakistani establishment, it is not tonight a question of a renegade Pakistani major supervising the 2611 operation. It is the ISI itself. It is the Pakistan government itself. America needs to introspect whether it's going to pretend to be blind, because then Obama can't come and give another speech like the one he gave in the Indian Parliament the last time. He would have lost the moral position to do so. G. Parthasarathi, how do you view this latest development? It's going to snowball from here, clearly.
Listen, I agree with what Lisa has said. What is the trial in Chicago all about? It's not about Mumbai. It's about Copenhagen. And the involved, because the whole thing started off with the sharing of information with the Danes on Copenhagen. And the confessions of both Headley and Rana pertained to the links for Copenhagen. That is what the trial is all about. It is not about Mumbai. But during their thing about testimony about Copenhagen, yes, they did indicate that they were in touch with ISI officers, and lots of people have named them. It is our friend Kasab in India, it is Headley, it is Rana, and that is no secret. As Lisa says, the Americans know that Zakir Rahman Lakhvi is conducting Lashkar-e-Taiba operations from his Adiala jail cell. We also know that General Shuja Pasha met him. We also know the attack on our embassy in Kabul was done through the same direction with Ilyas Kashmiri. So, and the Haqqani network. So, I think the Americans at this point in time, if all this is to come out, would have to declare Pakistan a terrorist state. I don't think they're prepared to do it at this point in time. Down the line, it's a different matter. The Pakistanis know to their bitter cost that once their utility is gone, they will be dumped into the backyard.
So, Lisa,
so I think from the American point of view, you also have to see it. They are not going to, at this point in time, rock the boat for the Pakistanis. After all, when you go through the Raymond Davis affair, it has now emerged from the United States that the ISI was after him because he was keeping an eye on the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which operates from just outside Lahore. Otherwise, why do you have a CIA guy operating from Lahore for this sort of thing, surreptitiously? So, I think these things are emerging, but Arunabh, this is not the issue. All these facts, we have to wait some more time. It's not going to be in the trial in Chicago. It's going to be in the trial in New York, where those charged are by American, the charges have been brought by relatives of American nationals killed in Mumbai. The charges are specific. Those summoned include the Director General of the ISI, and the Pakistan government is set to contest it. That is where the facts of Mumbai come in. And the court is just at this point in time, as I see it, the Chicago court, and perhaps Lisa can correct me on this one, but this is the Copenhagen case. And in any case, these facts were given to our National Intelligence Agency when, in the presence of the FBI, they questioned Richard Headley or Dawood Gilani or whatever his name is. So I think this will evolve. I'm naturally amused what my friend Zafar has to say, except that with Lisa there, I want the Americans would not take too kindly with us fooling around with the Taliban of any form, whom they are fighting in Afghanistan, and we are not quite as bold and brave and valiant as the Pakistanis to do it. Because it is the Pakistanis who are being charged
let me make a
the Taliban, the Haqqani network and the Quetta Shura.
Lisa. Yes, Lisa.
Let me make a comment on this issue of Pakistani boldness, because these revelations are coming out at a very interesting time. Shuja Pasha, the head of Pakistan's ISI, was just in a meeting here in Washington with the CIA director, and according to the media here, he was basically requesting that there be an end to the drone strikes in Pakistan's tribal border areas and more transparency from the CIA on its activities inside Pakistan. And one Pakistani official said the U.S. needs to trust the ISI more. Now, I would say that the ISI needs to earn this trust, and that we have not seen clarity from Pakistan's intelligence services on the issue of dealing with terrorism, and that Pakistan is trying to take advantage of the Raymond Davis episode to gain leverage in its intelligence relationship with the U.S. But the U.S. should not take the bait. They should not succumb to these Pakistani pressure tactics, because there's a reason that the U.S. must conduct unilateral counterterrorism activities in Pakistan, and that's because a global threat emanates from this country, and the Pakistanis simply have not controlled this threat. I recognize there's 147,000 Pakistani troops along the border. Over 2,000 Pakistani soldiers have lost their lives in fighting militants along the border. But because Pakistan still tries to fight some terrorists and support others because they believe that's in their national security interests, what they're doing is they're putting Pakistan's internal security at risk. And they're also risking relations with the U.S. with these very risky dual policies. And certainly we have not seen them crack down on the Lashkar-e-Taiba in the way that a country sincerely interested in combating terrorism would do.
My question is to Christine, who's back with us. Zafar Hilali, coming back to you. Christine, tell us, do the people of America have no qualms that their government is tonight, at this very hour, talking to a man, the ISI chief, who possibly conducted one of the most barbaric killings, who was personally behind one of the worst incidents of terrorism in human history? Do the American people have no qualms that such a man is doing official business tonight in Washington with the American government?
Okay, first of all, I'm very frustrated with the hyperbolic tone of this discussion. So let's tone down the hyperbole and keep things in their proper perspective. I mean, though the event was horrible, it wasn't even the most horrific event in India's history. So let's scale back on the hyperbole, because I find it very unprofessional.
I'm sorry.
I think
Christine,
I think there's a bigger issue.
Christine,
sorry, let's try to keep this professional and not a Fox.
I will certainly, but I must.
News.
1 minute, Christine. Let me just come in here. Let's be very clear, Christine. By that logic, America is even tonight, some would say, hyperventilating on 9/11. You wouldn't say America is hyperventilating on 9/11. It's all relative.
Okay, if you would like to have a conversation, then you have to let your participants actually engage in the conversation. This is not Fox News. So the issue is, if you will let me finish, is that the Americans have given Pakistan $19 billion, and there are much larger fish to fry. Namely, that we wanted them to participate in this war on terrorism, yet they are continuing to fund the various organizations that are actually killing us in Afghanistan right now, right? So, $19 billion to participate in the war on terrorism when they're actually a party to the war on terrorism on the side of helping our enemies is really a huge issue. Now, there is an interagency debate about how we deal with Pakistan, because the reality is that as long as we stay engage with the counterinsurgency footing in Afghanistan, we need Pakistan to supply the ground, the GLOCs, to basically supply the logistical movement to get the material into Afghanistan. So there are very real constraints about what we can do. If you look at the Kerry Lugar-Berman legislation, and this is what I think is actually most interesting, going to the U.S. Congress, is that the State Department is required to certify that Pakistan is making meaningful efforts against Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Afghan Taliban, and so forth, as a condition of its security assistance. The State Department has not even begun that process of certification.
Which is,
and I think the
you
point that
answer the
Lisa
question.
has made is that it's very difficult for the State Department, or it will be very difficult for the State Department to certify
One
that
minute,
Pakistan
Christy.
has in fact made progress, because in fact it hasn't. In fact, it's done
let her
everything it
complete
can
it.
to
Exactly.
thwart progress against Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Afghan Taliban.
Christine, you know, we are discussing two separate issues here. And I don't understand this connection that's being drawn, but Casey, I'd like your comment on it. Here we are talking about a terrorist case. A terror case in which the ISI is directly involved. I mean, why should an Indian take this logic that we have invested billions of dollars in America with Pakistan? We have strategic interest to look for. We thought Obama did not draw a link, Casey, between that strategic relationship and America's commitment to fighting shoulder to shoulder, in his words, in the battle against terror in India. Casey. Now we see a link being drawn here, so let's get direct. Casey, what do you think about what Christine said?
Yeah, I think Christie is basically saying the same thing. I don't think we are in disagreement. What Christie is saying is that the US government is conflicted over this. There is a debate which is there within the government, and that's why last week the presidential statement made by the White House was extremely critical of Pakistan, which was unprecedented. But this debate is there this debate took place on the eve of the visit of General Pasha, and they haven't finished deciding exactly how to go about it.